And now, presenting the winner of the Howard L. Green Humanitarian Award, ladies and gentlemen, the angel of the airwaves, Barbara Altman.
I don't know what the giveaway is, the fact that I am not the winner of the Howard L. Green Humanitarian Award. And angel of the airways is a term I don't necessarily embrace. But with that said, good morning and welcome to hour number 2 of the Front Porch, Barbara Altman's Front Porch. I'm David Spatz, filling in for Barbara today, a little under the weather. Maybe not a surprise considering the way the weather has been. But joining us here in the studio today is certainly no stranger to News Talk 1400 WOND, because long before he decided he wanted to run Atlantic City, and again, we're still thinking that maybe he should have gone out and had his head examined, but before he made that decision. But that being said, he's been a guest many times on this station. He is the director of Atlantic City's Special Improvement Division, now an entity within the Casino Reinvestment Development Authority. He is Atlantic City's Republican candidate for Mayor, Don Guardian. Welcome to the Front Porch.
Good morning, Dave. Always good to be on the Front Porch, and always good to be back on News Talk 1400 WOND.
Every time you say that, I keep thinking he's auditioning for my job. He says it too well. Anyway, so Don, what's new in your life these days?
Same old.
Yeah,
exactly. It's wonderful, David. Still going door to door. We're meeting with groups in playgrounds. We're doing meet and greets. We're doing fundraisers. Lots of people coming on board.
It sounds like a grassroots campaign.
Yeah, it is. It absolutely is grassroots. From the beginning, I think, we have 250 volunteers that are out there now. So they're working every day. I mean, after work or before work or at lunch, I go down to campaign headquarters. There's always a dozen people that are out there making signs, making phone calls, handing out literature. And then we have so many, the city's so diversified, so is our campaign. So we really have targeted all sorts of groups that have come. What's surprising is, despite the differences, they all have the same concerns. Safety, if you're a homeowner, it's the 22% tax increase and the fear of what the tax will be next year. It's people just sickened, especially after Bloomfield News came out with the amount of debt that the city has taken on the last 4 years, and it's going to take 20 years to pay. It's 15% of the budget now. So 15% of your taxes is just going toward debt reduction, and that doesn't seem to be stopping anytime soon. It'll stop when we run out of money and we go bankrupt.
Would you say that
Sure.
the tax issue is probably the number one concern of most Atlantic City voters that are property owners? Because, I mean, look, the casino industry has taken a beating over the past 7 years. There's no denying that. They're all appealing their assessments. At one point, some properties were assessed at over $1 billion, and that's what they were taxed at. And now they're assessed at half of that, and maybe even less than that, which means someone has to make up that difference in taxes.
Right. So right now we have a very unfair situation. Casinos and residential properties and business properties all were reassessed 6 or 7 years ago, and they were assessed at the highest price they had been for a really long time. On a personal note, my home was appraised at $290,000. That's what I'm paying taxes for, but I'd have trouble selling it for $150,000. And so the point is that casinos had the funding to appeal their taxes, and rather than the correct appraisal, they are being appraised at the lowest possible value, whereas home owners are still being appraised at the highest value. City spent $900,000 last year on a single attorney contract for tax appeals. So clearly, when you're spending $1 million a year on lawyers for tax appeals that you're going to lose because it's unfair, it certainly makes a whole lot more sense to do a reassessment. And the reassessment, all it does is make it fair. Now, what it'll do initially is, if you're a residential homeowner, if you're a business owner, it's going to push some of your taxes back on the casino side because they're already at a low rate. So when we do a reassessment, it's the homeowners whose assessments are going to be reduced and the taxes are going to be reduced. But it still leaves us spending more money than we should be in city government. So the first area is really a fairness issue, is bringing everyone down to what the actual value of your property is worth. The second issue that homeowners, and certainly as you mentioned, it's not just homeowners, but it's everyone else, because they know as long as the taxes continue to rise with no end in sight, that no one's going to come and build, no one's going to buy a home, and certainly we can't attract new businesses. So controlling the cost of government is paramount.
Before we get into any of the other issues in the campaign, there's one thing, popped into my head. You are 60 years old.
I am.
You have been a resident of Atlantic City, if I'm not mistaken, for 22 years.
Well, I moved down here 24 years, but I've been in my house 19 years.
19 years. Okay. You are in what people would say almost a transitional phase at your age, looking forward to probably taking it easy, over the next few years. Most people do. I'm not one of them, but a lot of people, when they hit 60, start thinking, wow, only a few more years till I can collect that gold watch and everything. But you not only have decided to, take on the responsibilities of SID director, but now you're running for mayor. Why?
So there's no personal gain here in terms of finances.
Right.
On January 1,
if you win, you'll take a pay cut.
It'll be close to the same.
Oh, close to the same. Okay.
I make $103,000 now, and right. I think the mayor makes that.
Okay.
Well, he gave himself a $15,000 raise, so I don't know where that sits. But it's about the same. Salary and benefits are the same. I'm not taking a car, so it's about the same. So, yes, it would be easier for me just to stay at SID and continue to clean and maintain half the city. I have a good working relationship with my two bosses and with the CRDA board of directors. And, yeah, I'd like to spend the next 8 or 10 years still working. I'm not ready to retire. I'm still excited. I just think this is a good challenge. And the reason that I took on the mayor's is because I just saw how easy it is to take half the city and maintain it. Mm-hmm. And I know that I can do the same for the other half. And as long as I've lived here, we've had political leaders that continue to try to polarize us. And they get one small group, and it creates a couple hundred votes, and that's all you need in the most part to win in Atlantic City. And so as we're becoming polarized, we never join together, we never solve solutions. And through my work with all the community organizations, that's the only way things get done.
I think people forget that Atlantic City has a population, plus or minus about 36,000 people. That's the population. That isn't the number of registered voters. When you get to registered voters, what do you get? 6,000 maybe? 8,000?
Right. So we have 20,000 registered voters.
Okay.
Only 12,000 voted in one of the last 4 years. So much smaller group there. It's much smaller than that.
Right. So it doesn't take that many votes to swing an election.
That's correct.
Right. Wow.
And I would be foolish to be talking about numbers now, but we're very comfortable that for the thinking voter, I'm their candidate. And as they hear me or talk to me or email me or follow me on Twitter or friend me on Facebook, that they're seeing that the issues that they have, we probably share common views on how we can fix them. Or I'm listening to people and I'm learning on a vision that we can all have to make the city better.
I was reading the session you had with the editorial board at the Press of Atlantic City the other day, and the thing that struck me was the lead. They said basically that you want Lorenzo Langford's job, but you don't want his office.
Right.
Literally, you don't want his office.
No. It's not his fault that he has that office.
Right. Every mayor,
every mayor has had that office.
Needs an
but
office,
if you've not been in that office, right. It's a penthouse suite on the 7th floor, extends the width of the building.
Of
it's
the stereo building, the stereo speaker.
Yeah. Yes, building and things. So the point is that I think it's symbolic of all the overspending that the city has. So it's more symbolic not to have that as the office to find a better use for it. And yeah, the point is that I need a desk somewhere, and that the more time I spend behind the desk, the less successful I think I am, or the less hardworking I am. Because you really need to be out there and making sure things get done, and talking with people, and meeting with people, and meeting with your staff. A key part that I have to do every day is to meet with my staff and to thank them. And when they're not working, that's the case too. I usually talk about how I stop my staff and tell them that I'm really proud that they're picking up trash or planting grass or building a new park and things. When they're not working, I do the same thing. I tell them how disappointed I am. I ask them, very blunt questions, because we're all out there to do the best job possible.
You have deliberately taken the high road in this campaign so far. You are not trashing your opponent with negative ads, and you're not going down into the gutter the way so many political campaigns have degenerated, and we've seen that just on a local level. I'm thinking of right now the first district Senate race down in Cape May, mostly Cape May County, is both candidates said they traded emails. No, we're going to keep this just to the issues. We're not going to let it get personal. And then before the email ink was dry, it started getting personal. You had said from the beginning it was not going to be personal. It was going to be about the issues, and you've stuck with it.
Yeah, and Dave, everything bad in Atlantic City isn't my opponent's fault. I mean, some of it he did inherit, and the economy has gone south, and the concept of gaming being a monopoly on the East Coast for Atlantic City has disappeared too. But my opponent has 12 years to fix things, to make it better, and he hasn't. That's really why I should be mayor. I do have the vision. I do have the capability of doing more with less. I also think that for South Jersey, and this goes for all of South Jersey, because everyone's benefited from casino gaming, is for 30 years, of the last 35 years, you have a new casino being built, or a tower, or a garage, and that brings in new ratables. And so you just spend a little bit more money. As long as your taxes go up, you're not really paying a whole lot of attention to what government is doing. And those days stopped, obviously, several years ago. And I really don't think that people that are in elected office now are comfortable or have the ability to provide same services or better services with less money. Now, if you're in business, you get that all the time. I mean, someone's looking at your books every week, every month, every quarter, and you're constantly adjusting on how you do things. And that's really what I bring to City Hall. It's that kind of common sense. So, you get a tax appeal and you lose. You got to take the lumps. You got to realize that you're going to have less money. You got to live with less money. You got to figure out how to do the services the best you can. You got to be more efficient in how you do it.
Don, when did you first start entertaining the notion of running for mayor? And how long did you keep it to yourself before you finally said to somebody else, I'm thinking of it? Or did other people come to you and say, Don, you got to run?
Yeah, so about 15 years ago is when it would be rare for me to meet with people that they didn't tell me that I should be running for mayor. And I would always tell them what Atlantic City needs is someone who is happy with their career, so it's no longer a stepping stone, and that they don't have the kids at home and they have no other issues. Instead of joining a bunch of charities, they become the mayor, and they see that as their community service. And they may make a lot of enemies because they got to clean things up and they got to make things right, but they can walk away in 4 or 8 years and know that they've done a good job. The problem has been that I couldn't find that person, and it really got serious 6 or 8 months ago, because I went to the Republican Party, the city party, and I really was there because I needed to blow up. I needed to tell them, what are you doing? How come no one's running? Why can't you do anything? Do you see what's going wrong in the city? How come you can't stand up? And, a couple of weeks later, I ended up being the candidate for mayor. They were pretty enthusiastic. Mark Padula is the chairman, and he said, I'd really like you to consider. And I said, give me a couple of weeks. I need to talk to some friends to run the numbers to see if it's doable, because I have no intentions of just doing this as a noble cause.
Right.
I'm going to do it.
You're not
going
to become a sacrificial Republican lamb,
Right. And
especially in a city that has traditionally elected a Democrat mayor. And in fact,
Right.
It used to be for the longest time that the Democratic primary was pretty much the mayoral election, because that would determine who would be running in the general election, and whatever Democrat ran in the general election was generally elected mayor.
Yes, Dave. And the last Republican mayor was our city's first black mayor, Jim Usry, but it was during a nonpartisan election period in our city and things. But, I like to think of Fiorello LaGuardia. Someone had asked him, what party he belongs to, and he turned around and he said, when I'm filling your pothole, do you think it matters whether I'm a Republican or a Democrat? When I get the World's Fair to come to Flushing Meadow, to I guess what's now LaGuardia Airport,
Right.
1939, he goes, is it going to matter whether I'm a Democrat or Republican? And they really have the same line now. You want me to plow the snow off of your roads, and you want me to light the whole city and treat everybody equally and clean streets, and it really doesn't matter. You want me to be fair and honest, and you want me to be a good manager.
Don, let's see who's on the phone right now. We have a caller from Egg Harbor Township. Caller, you're on the front porch with Don Guardian.
Yes, hello, everybody. I have just a comment that I think I heard him a few times on the radio, and it sounds to be a good person. From certain things he said, I can appreciate what he said, and I know that he will be a very good person to be on Atlantic City, and I wish him well, and the people that will not vote for him, they will deserve everything they're going to get if they don't vote for him.
Okay, I'm sure he appreciates that.
Thank you, ma'am.
That was Marie in Egg Harbor Township, but that's okay. She didn't want her name used, but I recognized the voice the moment she said hello. I mean, an accent like that doesn't kind of just fly under the radar. Anyway, one of the other things that I noticed in the story in the paper the other day was, and you've proven this time and again, you do know how to get more for less, don't you? I mean, you pointed out how many people it takes to clean. For the city to clean, it's half for the city, and how many you've got. And
I almost feel bad when I say things like that, because some people say that it's indication that city workers aren't working hard, and I always come back and say that's not the case. It's if they don't receive the training and they don't receive the equipment, you don't maintain the equipment, you don't have the supervision, and finally you don't have the accountability, then you can't expect to get things done. So it's really that I want to bring. I mean, I'm going to be very excited about working with Public Works, because they're going to do a phenomenal job, and they're going to be pitted right up against the Special Improvement District, and you're going to see that both groups are going to deliver fabulous parks, clean playgrounds, clean streets, better lit streets, but they have to have the technology, they have to have the equipment,
right,
and they have to have the training. So Dave, it's almost impossible to clean streets if there are weeds along the curb lines, if there are weeds wherever there's a crack in the asphalt and things. And so you need to have a couple of people that take their certification for pesticide control so they can spray what amounts to Roundup on the streets, and that prevents the weeds, that makes it easier to clean. So some things are a very simple solution. Recently I've been telling people not everything costs $100 million.
Exactly.
We need to create better lighting. So I'm a detail guy. I'm going to find out if LED lighting has now reached the point that we can light streets with it, because we know how economical it is. And where it's not, then probably what's called metal halide is better than the low pressure or high pressure sodium lights that we use now, because it produces a better light at a lower cost. But I also need everyone to join in with us. So we're going to figure out a way to give everyone a low cost light bulb if they agree to put on their front porch light from dusk to dawn. So they put on their lights, we light the streets. It's one small part of about 10 steps that we need to help crime But everybody needs to work together.
So, in other words, safe to say that you were going to be nickel and diming your way toward more fiscal responsibility?
Yeah, Dave, when we looked at trash cans, I'll use trash cans or bus shelters, you can pick it. What I did was, before we picked the trash cans that we're using now, is I visited 2 factories. I talked to everyone that worked with the metal. I asked them, how thick does the metal have to be? Why would you galvanize it? Do you paint it after you galvanize it? Where the well should be? I was concerned about, if you were in a wheelchair, is the can too high for you to be able to reach into? I was concerned about, can we design a can that you don't have seagulls pulling trash out of the top and dropping it on the side? Mm. Could we produce a can that we could actually lock in a reasonable way, that vendors don't throw their trash in the trash can and fill them up, or pizza boxes in trash cans and fill them up, but that our sanitation workers could easily open and close? I was concerned about whether it made sense for a sanitation guy to have to pick up 150 or 200-pound can, or if it could slide out of the side and then just slide along to the truck where it could just be pushed over.
Sort of like what Egg Harbor Township has done with their they replaced their fleet of traditional trash trucks with these side,
So, Dave, a great segue is, so we're not looking to create something that doesn't exist. We're looking at best practices of other cities, and so we've got to look at everything we do. How does our website look against other cities, and how easy is it to access that information? How do we pick up trash, and how do we buy uniforms, and how do we maintain police cars? And does it make sense for the police officer to drive his car home at night? Does that, during those years that we did that, did that show that you prevented a lot of the smaller crime in the city? Did that encourage a police officer to live in the city? And then obviously all those benefits. You have the police officer living in the city. You kind of work with him so that he becomes a coach and a scout leader and, a youth minister at his congregation and, volunteers at the Boys and Girls Club. So it's that part of the community building we've also lost that we need to work on. And we don't see ourselves as a family anymore. And we've ruined that experience since World War II. So, I'm talking about simple solutions. You have a beautiful promenade along the bay. David, we should have picnic tables and we should have benches. When you get up in the morning, you should be having a cup of coffee, watching the sunrise, or you should be spending the warm weather bringing a meal and enjoying it outside. You get to know your neighbors on a first-name basis, and then when there's a concern, there's a snowstorm, there's a nor'easter like it is today, you're going to say, wow, let me see if Dave's okay next door, because I now know your name. So a lot of it has to do with rebuilding.
Actually reminds me of a Seinfeld episode when they put the pictures of everybody in the building up on a bulletin board down in the lobby so everybody could get to know one another. Jerry wasn't really happy about that.
But yes, that's the same concept and things. I see myself as a citizen of my neighborhood, but I see myself as a citizen of the world too. And so, I take some lofty ideas that we can help, and I work to try to achieve them.
Let's take another phone call. Steve's in Northfield. Steve, welcome to Barbara Altman's Front Porch.
Well, I don't even know where to begin. First of all, I'd like to congratulate you. You lead by example, and it's got to come from the top down. And the fact that you don't want the penthouse office and you're not going to take a car. I think the last one to deny a car from Atlantic City Council was Louise Palmentieri back in the 80s. But my question to you is, I know car repeals are real important, and cleanliness of the city is utmost, especially when you enter a tourist town like ours. In recent years, we heard that the basketball player Shaq was going to invest, in conjunction with somebody else, $75 million in the Northeast Inlet. There was going to be a developer over by MGM, the old MGM, but which is the Borgata site, the sail ship type of casino with a water park. The development down by Annapolis Avenue, where they're building $1 million condominiums, and when you say about the ratables and the taxes and rebates for that, I want to know what your business plan or business model was for addressing further development in the city. It seems like we have all these people. We have a guy that's going to make an announcement Labor Day. He's going to buy a boardwalk casino, and then he can't even get passports for his or whatever he needed for his Chinese investors to come in the state. So, I mean, I think I'm not a resident of Atlantic City, but the poor residents over there with a 22% tax increase and being served so much lip service from all these great intentions of investors, what strategy? I mean, I don't know how you can cut the cost. I'm glad to see you're addressing the lighting, but in the same token, you not only want to, light up the city, but the bottom line to me is you're looking at the cost factor. So if you're addressing the lighting and you have that dialogue between you and your workforce, which is most important and a healthy one, it sounds like, because you lead by example. I want to know your business model for trying to get further investment in the city. I'll hang up and listen.
Thanks for the call, Steve.
Thanks, Steve. So, first of all, you have to show investors that we're serious here. And showing them we're serious is having not only a zero growth budget next year, but trimming $25 million. So we're not talking about, a token $100,000 or $500,000. We need to be serious. We need to show everyone that we're going to be cutting out costs because we want to have people continue to live here. And we want to have people move in here, and we want investors to come here. Now, Perks Reuter was hired by the Chamber of Commerce back in maybe 2011, 2012, a while back. And they said that they met with all of the businesses that thought about coming to Atlantic City but didn't, and it all funneled down to the building department. It just needs to be completely revamped. They did a long study, but it basically said a couple of things like this. This is in 1950. You don't have six guys, you and your brother-in-law and your brother, that's going to build a house. You have architects and engineers and attorneys, and everything is on a CAD drawing. And yet our city is still operating as if it is 1950. You shouldn't have to go to six secretaries for six different permits. You should come into the business department. We should be welcoming you with open arms. You should have a point of contact that's going to take you from that moment to the time that you actually have your shovels in the ground and right through the time that you have your certificate of occupancy. Get rid of the bureaucracy and the red tape and announce that we're open for business and will attract new businesses to come into the city. As we're doing that, that's a little bit, a year, 2 years, 3 years away, but that does attract the ratables that help to run the town, help to maintain the tax base. But we can do things right away. Atlantic City is a tourism destination, so we've got to play on that. Everyone's on the same page, I think, here, that we've got to go beyond casino. So, I just have like 2 or 3 simple suggestions that go out there. If this was 1900, I would say we should be opening up a Chinatown. But it's not. So now let's talk about an international bazaar. Take a street that is devastated like Tennessee Avenue or New York Avenue, where there's nothing but parking lots on the boardwalk block, and turn that into your international zone and have Bangladesh and Vietnamese and Pakistani and Asian, for that matter, every country represented with food, with clothing, with music, and you would attract...
I believe I had heard a figure once that 85 different languages are spoken at Atlantic City High School.
Well, at Sovereign Avenue School, and 40 countries are represented because that's the number of flags they have flying in there.
Wow.
So we've always had a multicultural city and stuff. Let's use that. Let's say come down here and enjoy. That's one area. The second one is, when we talk about our strong African American heritage in Atlantic City, I don't want to simply talk about KY and the curb. I want to recreate it for 2015. And I think you partner with the CRDA on this one. There is no National Rhythm and Blues Museum. Everybody wants one. No one's able to find the money to get it. We should go after the R&B National Museum. It should have a theater. It should have a recording studio. And right next to it or down the block should be an African-American Heritage Museum. And then you fill that block with lots of ma and pa owned restaurants, whether it's just a rib joint or it's an upscale Southern boutique restaurant. But, those are the type of things that we need to bring to the city.
Listen, we could have brought the world's only and first Motion Picture Hall of Fame to Atlantic City.
Right. And so, David,
and I know a little bit about that.
So, David, let's talk about, even without building, we have Boardwalk Hall.
Right.
You had all the convention rooms, the breakout rooms that are no longer needed. It's an event center, but you don't need all those other rooms. Adrian Phillips Ballroom is still pretty spectacular,
Yes,
acoustically correct. About 2,000 seats is what I'm guessing.
2,000, 2,500, somewhere in there, yeah.
Seat auditorium and things like that. We should have a dance troupe here in Atlantic City. We should have a ballet. We should have a symphony. And we have the facility already. So let's make use of it. And then let's make sure that we pass on that knowledge. That's how you work arts into the city, by doing that kind of performances and then making sure that the children in our schools have a chance to see what art is all about and give them the opportunity to become artists themselves.
We're talking with Don Guardian. Don is the Republican candidate for mayor of Atlantic City. This would be a good time just to mention that Barbara Altman's Front Porch is brought to you in part by Jakelke's Candy Store in Margate, by Maxim Photo, and by Princess Promotions. Those are some of the people who are responsible for helping keep Barbara's Front Porch. Should we go to a break now, Scott? Let's take a real quick time out and be back with more of Don Guardian right here on the Front Porch.
Hi, this is Atlantic County Clerk Ed McGettigan. In addition to our general election to be held November 5th, the governor has called for a special election on October 16th to fill out our vacated United States Senate seat. There is an easy and convenient way to participate in these important elections, and that is to vote by mail. Any registered voter can vote by mail by filling out an application and returning it to the Atlantic County Clerk's office at 5901 Main Street, Mays Landing. Only one application is needed by simply checking off the general and special election boxes. You can also fill out your application in person, receive and vote your ballot, and return it right across the hall. The application deadline to receive your ballot by mail for the U.S. Senate election is October 9th, and the deadline for the general election is October 29th. Any questions, please call us at 625-4011 or visit us at www.atlanticcountyclerk.org. The Atlantic County Clerk's office is here to serve you. This is Ed McGettigan. Thank you.
And we welcome you back to the Front Porch, Barbara Altman's Front Porch, here on News Talk 1400 WOND, South Jersey's news talk leader. I'm David Spatz, filling in for Barbara today. She's a little bit under the weather. Our guest in the studio is Republican mayoral candidate from Atlantic City, Don Guardian. Don, before we continue with our discussion, let's go to the phones.
Hello.
John's in Upseekin. John, welcome to Barbara Altman's Front Porch.
Hey, how are you, Mr. Spatz?
All right, John.
Mr. Gordon, I got a question for you, and it's an easy one. I remember when you were over there campaigning with Steve Lonigan with the Bangladeshis. That was an interesting night for you. Anyway, moving on from that, up at Gardner's Basin, I know you were on the board of directors at one point. You had to resign in order to run for election. How is it that the aquarium can get more visitors than Boardwalk Hall? That's question number one. And question number two, is Scales going to be rebuilt by next summer, or is it still all up in the air?
Okay. The aquarium gets the numbers that they get because they have a terrific staff. The staff there are marine biologists themselves, but they're really dedicated to making it entertaining for the kids. Even though it looks like a little dinky aquarium, and in all respects it is. It's certainly not, the size of Baltimore or of Camden. But when you go there and, it's feeding time, if you've not been there with your kids, the marine biologists put a scuba equipment on. They dive into the large tank, and they have a wireless mic, and the kids lie in front of the tank, and they can talk to the divers and things. It's that type of interaction. It's the feel stuff that the kids get there. You bring your kid there. If you're an adult, you probably blow through that aquarium in 5 minutes.
No, I'm like a little kid. Go ahead.
Yeah. But if you're a little kid, you want to touch and feel and see, and you want to talk to people. So
I took my granddaughter there when she was about 4, and she was just absolutely enthralled.
Yeah, and you come back, and so on a day like this when there's nothing else to do, you come to the aquarium. So they do a good job. They do good marketing, on a very small basis. But Jack Keith and his whole crew over there, I think, need to be commended about that. When you compare it to Boardwalk Hall, what I'm learning as CRDA has taken over the Convention and Visitors Authorities, that they are horrendously short in the number of people that are selling conventions and shows. So I'm going to be off a little bit here, but I think we had a staff of 10 or 12, and now we have 2 or 3. So they are ramping up as we talk to get back to those kind of numbers of people that only get paid when they actually deliver. I mean, we all know sales. You can't be given the big salary out to do sales. You give the big salaries out when you produce.
And let me interject one thing to that real quick, Mr. Runner.
Yeah.
I was listening to a repeat show of Mr. Pinky's show from 1964 while he was on vacation. Not this time, but the last time. Can you believe it or not? They were still arguing about filling Boardwalk Hall all the way back in 1964. Okay, I'll listen. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. So I think your question was one about how the aquarium could have more people than Boardwalk Hall, and it's because we're not maximizing Boardwalk Hall, and yet maybe for the last 50 years, but we just need to be more creative. I've said this a couple times. As a city, as a people, we became lazy with casinos. They gave us money, they gave us jobs, and so we gave up the rest of our lives, where before you were really creative with how you came up with ideas for bringing people into the city. We need to go back there.
Wait, if I could jump in here, yeah. Don and John, and at the risk of opening a can of worms, I think one of the problems at Boardwalk Hall is it's too darn expensive for promoters to do business there and make a profit. The union contracts are so prohibitively expensive that more and more the promoters that put on these concerts, listen, they're in business to make money. They want to make a profit. They're not going to come to Atlantic City just to break even or to lose money. And I think that is something that needs to be addressed. Now, I know that the CRDA is in the process of reviewing the 2 contracts for the companies that want to manage Boardwalk Hall and the Atlantic City Convention Center. And one of them is SMG, which has had that contract for over 20 years. And the other is Global Spectrum, which is a division of Comcast. And they want to also...
So Dave, I'm a little too close to this matter with my job. I
I get that.
So it would be inappropriate. Right. I have real strong opinions on this, but
I think everybody
would be inappropriate. But let me, Steve, let me just go to the last point of scales.
I'll hang on. Have a great day, though.
Yeah,
thanks,
Steve. Scales. It's a city-owned property. Unfortunately, I think the city only had it insured for $200,000. I think we're talking about $1 million to rebuild it because you're going to have to put it up about 8, 10, 12 feet.
Exactly.
It would be spectacular. It would be very chart house-like because it would be high, and then you'd have the whole first floor, which would be really your decking to use as well. So we need initially what we were looking at before the damage was going to CRDA and asking them for a loan, not a grant, for Back Bay, so that could be doubled in size, so it would be year-round and it would have been equipped for ADA bathrooms and ramps for people that are physically challenged. But then the storm came, we kind of stopped. So I really think you need to be partnering with CRDA on this one, finding a loan that would be passed on to whoever rents out the place. But the Basin is a wonderful location, and certainly we need to have the Flying Cloud or Scales.
I think it's one of the best kept secrets in Atlantic City. The one issue I have with Gardner's Basin is that it's not difficult to get to, but it just a lot of the visitors don't know about it and don't know how to find it.
So it's finding it, Dave. And then the other thing is, and it's my predecessor. If he didn't start them, he certainly embellished them. They have great concerts in the summer.
Yeah.
Black Soul or old school. Yep. I don't know what the proper term is. Great concerts, and they're great concerts because people love them and they come by the thousands. Now, we're not equipped with the bathrooms up there, which needs to be addressed. We're not equipped with the parking, which needs to be addressed. But that's the type of activity that you want to live in the city, that you're proud to have. So that's what we've got to embellish. We shouldn't be paying with tax dollars. I don't see any reason why we can't find sponsors. But that level of concerts is what we need to have there, and we need to have that all over the city, each of the neighborhoods.
I'll give you an idea that I actually floated out on the show right after the Miss America competition, and I know damn well that you saw the Miss America competition on TV if you weren't there live at the hall. In the opening 8 minutes, when the contestants introduced themselves from various locations around the city, it was great. It was an absolute beautiful picture postcard moment for all of America to see Atlantic City's best foot forward. And the one piece of poetic license that they took, and I got a chuckle out of it, is when they had some of the contestants standing on commercial fishing boats up on Massachusetts Avenue.
Yes.
It was Massachusetts or New Hampshire, New Hampshire Avenue.
Rhode Island.
And Rhode Island Avenue. And they introduced it. It was whoever what's his name? Chris Harrison was the host. And now to Fisherman's Wharf in Atlantic City. And I thought, wait a minute. I like to think that I follow what's going on in Atlantic City, and I don't remember them ever naming it Fisherman's Wharf. But then I thought, why not Fisherman's Wharf at Gardner's Basin? Or if Fisherman's Wharf is trademarked in San Francisco, the wharf at Gardner's Basin, something that ties together the commercial fishing district with Gardner's Basin.
Yeah. So Dave, that's clearly the next step. We need to get, we have some, and I don't know if they're licensed and legal, but if you live in the area, you know that 2:30 on Saturday you go over and you're getting fresh lobsters from a couple of guys, and you're getting scallops as well. But that's what
at
you
a lot
need.
Cheaper than you're going to pay anywhere.
Huge discount. But we need more of that. That's what you should be able to do. That's why you should live in Atlantic City, because you get the fresh seafood.
Let's go back to the phones. Lorraine's in Atlantic City. Lorraine, hello, Lorraine. Welcome to the front porch. Lorraine? Hey, Lorraine. Lorraine, you're on the air. You have a question for Don Guardian?
Yes, sir. Hi. Nice to hear your voice, and the best of you this morning or afternoon. I appreciate that what you want to do is to help the community.
Yeah, do you have a question for Mr. Guardian?
Yes.
Well,
I'd like to ask him how we could go against the Muslim Brotherhood and stop them from attacking our nation.
Well, I think that's a question for another candidate for another office. So we're going to move right on. Connie's in Atlantic City. Connie, welcome to Barbara Altman's Front Porch.
Yes, good morning to you and your guest, Mr. Guardian. Question for Mr. Guardian. I noticed some of your flyers, and I never see it states what your political persuasion is. Are you a Democrat? Are you a Republican? Or what is your affiliation? Could you tell me that, sir?
Sure, Connie. I am a Republican. We're running on the Republican ticket, the same party of Abraham Lincoln and our first black mayor, Jay Musray.
Yeah, and I also wanted to ask you a question. How do you feel about people that majority of them don't live in the city, and for reasons that most of it is monetarily, why is it that to Atlantic City and try to sue and then say they want to run for office in Atlantic City, but yet they would try to sue the city and the citizens, and how do you feel about that?
I'm sorry, yeah. I just don't quite understand the question.
Okay, I'll explain it so that you will be understanding. In other words, you have people that formerly worked in Atlantic City, and now they're suing them. I call no names. You can feel what I'm talking about. And yet they say they want to be part of Atlantic City's administration, but yet they want to sue the citizens, and you're a citizen of Atlantic City, I assume. So how do you feel about that?
I think at some point you need to put your personal issues aside, and you need to be working for the greater good. If there was a harm or injustice done to you, and it was done purposely and was done maliciously, then certainly you have a right for some type of retribution. But if you're talking about a lot of the lawsuits that really go nowhere, just a nuisance, I have to agree with you. It's just a shame because we're spending money on lawyers and court times when they shouldn't be.
How do you feel, another question, how do you feel about the lady that's on the Credo or one of those tourist affiliations that is making $400,000? And I doubt if she knows about half of the city of Atlantic City or have even explored half of it. How do you feel about that kind of salary?
Okay, so I have nothing to do with that. That's the Atlantic City Alliance. They take in $30 million, which are paid completely by the casinos. It's a not-for-profit corporation, which means that the 12 casinos that pay that $30 million have a right to spend it any way they want. So,
and you think a salary of $400,000 is not very extreme? You think that's a good salary for someone that might not even know where half of the streets are in the city?
No, I don't.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Connie.
Thanks for the call, Connie. One more call will sneak in here, I think. Ed's in Atlantic City. Ed, welcome to the...
Good morning, gentlemen. The question I was going to ask real quickly is the boathouse. You were supposed to let me know about the boathouse on Arctic Avenue there by the Albany Avenue Bridge.
Yes, Ed, it is used for the high school for their athletic equipment. It's a workout room for the students, but they do clear it out, I understand, for the election time. But I have not been able to find anyone to tell me that you're able to rent out that space.
Okay, that's what I want to know. If it's paying for itself, I'm not sure. You know, if the taxpayers are picking up the tab.
It's the Board of Ed that's paying for it, so indirectly, yes, of course, it's the taxpayers that are paying the Board of Ed tax.
Okay, thanks a lot, sir.
Yep. Ed, I just want to say, Dave, that if people didn't have an opportunity to call in or they'd like a more detailed answer, certainly visit me on my website. It's donforac.com. They can friend me on Facebook and they can follow me on Twitter, or they can call our campaign headquarters, which is area code 609-318-4940.
Don,
well, you got my vote, sir. I'll tell you that, because I think you're a very intelligent person that knows how to run a city. Instead of not hearing from anybody, I think you've been around.
Thank you, Ed. With your vote and the vote of many other people's, I will not disappoint you.
Okay, thank you so much.
God bless.
Thanks a lot, Ed. Don, before we wrap things up, because the hour really kind of flew by, there has, for the longest time, and I mean, you know that I've spent most of my career covering the casino industry in Atlantic City, the entertainment end, yes, but I also know the business end of the gaming business. And historically, there always has seemed to be a disconnect between the casinos and City Hall. And it didn't matter really whose administration it was. There was a disconnect.
So
what can you do to bring those two? I mean,
so in 2 minutes, here we go.
We have a little bit more. Yeah,
okay, so voluntarily bring in casinos and have them partner with a school so they can help with the mentoring of the individual school children. They can bring in the knowledge of all types of vocations that are available beyond just cleaning rooms or bussing tables that each individual gaming property has to offer. You can team up with the school then and find a park or playground and together adopt it, so that a casino and a school would be adopting a playground, meeting with the residents that live within a few blocks, and making sure that that playground or park has the best facilities. I meet with casinos, with Atlantic Care, with the linen laundry, and anyone else that has more than 200 jobs in Atlantic City. And we sit together and realize that until we provide jobs for people that want to work in Atlantic City, all of our other problems don't go away. And so I ask everyone to voluntarily increase their workforce by 1% a year with Atlantic City residents. So for a special improvement district, that's 2 people over the entire year. For a brigada with 4,000 people, that would be 40 people. But that's how we create the jobs, not at City Hall, but with the private sector. And we, although it's voluntary, I'm going to have a report card on a website that comes out every month on everything that I've been talking about in the campaign, so you can judge me, and I'm going to be working on getting good grades and keeping my promise. As gaming properties and others come on board and say they will do things for us, we need to reach back and show how they're doing in the tasks that they accepted. So those are the first 2 tasks there. Some of them are more simple, Dave. It's allowing them to take their security and be allowed to go on the boardwalk and the side streets around their property, giving them the opportunity to clean the sidewalks and streets that are right there. We all benefit. They're not taking jobs away. We're just going to assign those staff to other parts of the city. And then we need them to come back to the table for entertainment and programs. We need to have all of our businesses realize that education is the future in reducing poverty, and so creating a endowment at Atlantic Cape Community College large enough to fund every child in Atlantic City that wants to continue for an associate's degree are ways that the casinos can reconnect to the community and show that they're good partners in our city.
And that would basically kind of create almost a pipeline for employment.
Yeah,
into the casinos.
Dave, this is kind of awful. When I worked for the Boy Scouts of America in Sussex County, one of the biggest supporters was the Playboy Club, because they wanted to make sure that they had local people that were educated, that went through high school, that went to college, that got excited about culinary arts and management and became CPAs, because it was people that they could hire. There was a direct relationship, and that's what we need to with...
Well, they must have had some bunnies come out of the program, too. I mean,
there was a program on modeling and hair care and et cetera. Again, Dave, thanks. Always good to be on the front porch. Visit me at donforac.com. And thank you so much for being on News Talk 1400 WOND.
God, what more do I have to say? Well, what I can say is that stay tuned, because I'll be coming up next, along with Dave Delaney, for the South Jersey edition from 12 to 1. And then we've got Bob Burns in your afternoon from 1. Now I have to shift into automatic, Scott. Bob Burns in your afternoon from 1 till 4. Pinky will be in Pinky's Corner as long as he doesn't get washed out by this terrible nor'easter from 4 till 6. NBC 40 News tonight from 6 till 6:30, followed by Chuck Betson and the Betson Connection with the very best in local sports talk. That's from 6:30 until 8 p.m. And then we invite you to start your day after our syndicated hosts take you through the night with their fascinating conversation about people abducted by aliens. After that, Don Williams, 6 to 10. Hopefully Barbara will be back on the front porch tomorrow from 10 to 12, and then I'll be back at 12 noon with the South Jersey edition, the Friday edition. Also, coming up 2 p.m. today, we'll be getting September casino numbers. I'm transitioning now from the front porch to the news aspect of things. So we'll have the front porch, and then we'll have casino numbers at around 2 o'clock, September casino numbers. Was Miss America a game changer? No, it wasn't a game changer. It never was supposed to be a game changer. Did it mean anything to the casinos? Did they make more money? I suspect not, but it did bring in non-gaming revenue, and we have to remember that that's very important. Scott Stevens, thank you for helping me through this interesting 2 hours that came together at the very last minute. It was very cool. You kept me on the straight and narrow. I'm David Spatz. For all of us here at News Talk 1400 WOND, and for Barbara Altman, the winner of the Howard L. Green Humanitarian Award and the First Lady of Talk Radio here in Southern New Jersey, I'm David Spatz. Thanks for being with us. Stay dry, and I'll see you again in a few minutes.
Radio you can depend on. News